they actually don't mean anything. Because you have one side of the border, you have the same people. On the other side of the border, you have also the same people. In almost all countries, it's exactly like that.
The frontline states were key allies in the fight against apartheid, offering vital support to exiles and liberation movements.
We joined SADC because we were liberated. SADC assisted us in our liberation struggle. And when we joined SADC in 1994, it was what I called a natural reintegration of all liberation movements and forces within the SADC region.
On this historic occasion, we bring you the warmest and fraternal greetings of our President Nelson Mandela, our Government of National Unity, and indeed the people of South Africa as a whole. And we thank you most sincerely for your invitation to democratic South Africa to join the Southern African Development Community as its 11th member.
Since 1994, successive South African presidents have consistently placed SADC at the heart of South Africa's foreign policy.
Now, that's very pivotal for me to understand SADC, because I think it plays a role in how SADC engages politically, economically, and socially with one another. So by the time South Africa joins in 1994, we suddenly have a regional bloc that can speak with one voice. What it means to have a regional bloc like SADC is that member states come together and they are able to engage around peace, security, and economic development. And I think it's an essential tool for African nations to work together within regions to get certain development trajectories off the ground.
In 1994 changed everything. We became a member of the family of nations, and as it were, we were the new kid on the block. It was a moment of great joy, and our aspirations as a nation, a newborn nation really, was that we should become part of this club of nations.
Since joining SADC, South Africa has marked a pivotal turning point in the region's integration and cooperation. As the continent's most industrialized economy, South Africa has brought both influence and direction to SADC, shaping a foreign policy rooted in peace, cooperation, and regional development.
We saw a change, a sea change, in which the new government that came into power in 1994, its foreign policy changed. A foreign policy that emphasized human rights, that emphasized cooperation, that emphasized the Africanness.
Ever since South Africa joined, they have led or been part of the leadership of the SADC region. They have indeed become part of the creation of SADC to be what it is. And South Africa is often an additional thing, often played what we call a diplomatic bridge. Sometimes when we had difficult engagements or moments of tension, it has been able to probably draw in from its experience as it was doing negotiation.
And we played a number of roles, particularly in peace missions and fostering peace in a number of countries.
When we move into SADC, in terms of at least systems and processes, I think South Africa played a very big role there.
South Africa's integration into SADC reinforced a shared commitment to democratic governance. From monitoring elections to providing technical assistance, South Africa's efforts have strengthened democratic institutions and promoted credible electoral processes across member states.
We have been able to assist electoral support system where countries could not manage elections.
It can't be taken for granted. It's something that was fought for, which previous generations in the SADC region or even in our country do not have this opportunity of voting regularly.
As South Africa, we have been very fortunate to have an excellent independent electoral commission established by our constitution as one of the institutions promoting democracy.
For us to monitor and observe elections is to bring a sense of trust, credibility, legitimacy in those elections. We want to see democracy thrive. We want to see the good governance, the rule of law prevailing in those African countries.
In addition to promoting democratic governance, South Africa has, over the past 30 years, played a leading role in supporting regional stability, particularly during the political crises in countries such as Lesotho and Mozambique.
The Department of Foreign Affairs has a fund, it's called the Renaissance Fund, where South Africa would then assist in peacekeeping in the region, conflict resolution, negotiation. In the 90s, 96, 97, our neighboring countries confronted quite a number of crises pertaining to political, economical challenges. One in particular is Lesotho. There were signs that the military is taking over the country and there will be massive killing of people.
As South Africa made it quite clear that militarily it's not acceptable for the military to intervene. And therefore that, as South Africa and as SANDF, we've managed to take along to our brothers in SADC.
Lesotho also being a kingdom, just went through a lot of military coups. We had to go in there and assist because it will have an impact in terms of people's movement, it will have an impact in terms of regional security. Zimbabwe was a bit tough for us, if you look at Zimbabwe, but we were able to assist Zimbabwe in terms of electoral support system.
In the Zimbabwean crisis, it became an international where bigger power sanctions were applied and a number of things that went wrong in that country. But South Africa managed to bring stability.
SANDF has also engaged in mediation and peacekeeping in DRC and northern Mozambique.
The principles, you must at least only use force when you're protecting yourself. And two, you must be seen to be impartial. Now, in Congo, you can't be impartial. You are bound to go.
Welcome back to a special broadcast of the 46th Summit SADC. We're coming live here from the Chief Albert Lutuli International Convention Center in KZN in South Africa. You've just pretty much, watched a documentary that gives you an overview of the establishment of SADC since its formation. And hopefully, you've enjoyed it. But then joining us in studio, we have the Commissioner, Dr. Mike Masiapato from the Border Management Agency, who will give us an overview of the readiness, from the BMA perspective. Dr. Masiapato, welcome to Goza TV.
That's great. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Dr. Masiapato, as South Africa is hosting the SADC Summit, and we're taking that 10, I think it is our fourth time that we actually are hosting. In terms of the the establishment of the BMA, what progress has taken place in terms of, the management and security of the South African border?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Yes, since the BMA establishment, 1st April 2023, there is a lot of work that has been done up to this point in terms of ensuring that we implement an integrated border management model. You will remember that we have actually undone what used to be called a multi-agency approach in terms of border management, where there has been a lot of government departments that has been sent to the port, to go implement their own individual departmental legislative mandates. And on that particular basis, that has created a lot of silos, a lot of fragmentation, a lot of wastage of resources. But ultimately, it also created a platform for corrupt activities. So when we then had to come through, we had to actually move towards integrating various functions under a single command and control, which effectively enabled us to be able to intensify border management work by ensuring that we are able to share resources within the same ecosystem, but at the same time make sure that we intensify the operations in the environment. So we can say that a lot has been done just within the context of facilitating people movement, but also facilitating goods movement. I can give you a typical example. We just came back from Oshuk, a port of entry, which is a port between South Africa and Eswatini. We used to spend something like, or we used to take something like 9 hours for a truck on the road for it to be able to be processed at the port between South Africa and Eswatini. 9 hours. We're able to reduce that to 6 hours. We're then able to reduce that to 5 hours. And I just came back from there now. We are now able to do end-to-end processing of a truck in 20 minutes between South Africa into Eswatini. And what have we done? We made sure that we synchronize the standard operating procedures within the port on the South African side, but also synchronize the same operating procedures with our immediate neighborhood, which is Eswatini in this instance. And on that basis, we have better facilitation and better movement. But at the same time, there are a lot of other things that we are doing around dealing with issues of illegal migration, the technology that we have introduced, and all of those kind of issues.
It's very encouraging that there's a relationship and coordination, bilaterals actually happening between member states. In preparation of SADC, I mean, are you engaging with them? Is there proper coordination, with those countries, and 16 countries in total? Or and also, what challenges may you also just give us a snippet that are actually taking place?
Yeah, maybe let me say that in terms of our immediate 6 neighboring countries, those are the countries that we share land borders with in particular. We have a lot of interaction with them on a daily basis. You will be aware that each and every port has what we call the Port Management Committee. So the Port Management Committee is a committee on the South African side of the border, wherein we have all the key leadership within that particular space led by the port commander of the Border Management Authority. So in that instance, we then have what we call the joint bilateral committees, and that is now the Port Management Committee of South Africa and the Port Management Committee of the immediate country. And we are able to synchronize the issues. We are able to make sure that we coordinate our efforts. If, for example, we have to extend operating hours, for whatever reason, we make sure that we interact together and we're able to do so. If there is some kind of a disaster like a rain, as an example, and we need to kind of synchronize our decision making, for example, to stop processing because of, for example, the place no longer being safe, we do that through those particular platforms. All of those things are actually done to demonstrate that we work with our immediate neighborhood, particularly from a processing perspective. So the working relationship there is fine. The only main challenge we have is on the issue of illegal migration. I think you will fairly be aware that stopping illegal migration is a bit of an expensive enterprise, because mainly people are really moving away from economic strife in their jurisdiction, and therefore they are actually going to another space with the intention of getting better job opportunities. So because of that, it then becomes a bit difficult even for those countries to try and do border patrols to stop their own nationals from exiting their country illegally into South Africa. And that is where the bigger challenge is. But the second biggest challenge is when countries also struggle to give their people passports for them to be able to move through the normal ports of entry and be able to enter South Africa, for instance, in this particular example. So those are the kind of challenges that are actually there. But despite that, there are other countries who can be able to give their people passports, but the passports are just very expensive. And that is why then people are not able to afford those passports, and that is why they will enter the country, South Africa, illegally. So it is all of these kind of things that are very much problematic. But from a facilitation perspective, we work very well. The only problem we have is just on the issue of illegal migration. In terms of the rest of SADC, once again, we have the problem of illegal migration coming even outside our 6 neighboring countries. That is why our border with Zimbabwe becomes one of the most chocker-blocker area, because we don't only deal with Zimbabweans, but we deal with people from Congo, for example, people from Zambia, people from Malawi, and all of the other parts of the continent. And that is where the bigger, I would say, enforcement that we do is actually happening in that particular corridor to make sure that we deal with illegal migration.
And Dr. Masia, but if we look at this particular summit and the kind of operational work that BMA had to put in, can you just unpack for us, how you help with the movement, of dignitaries coming into the country, as well as making sure that goods are declared, etc. If you can just take us through that.
Yeah, you see, this particular summit, we planned for it since, earlier in the year. We knew that it is coming in August. So on that basis, from a border management perspective, we had to then make sure that we put all the resources together from a planning perspective to make sure that we are ready to deal with this particular event. So what is the first thing that we do as part of the planning? One, we make sure that we actually engage with our colleagues from DERCO, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. We then re-emphasize what are the do's and the don'ts for coming into South Africa. For instance, if we talk about countries from SADC, there is no visa requirement for them to enter the Republic. So what do they need? They only need a passport, as an example. So in that instance, it's not an issue in terms of visa requirements, because most of them have either 90 days, 60 days, or 30 days to can enter South Africa, as we can also enter their countries. So we re-emphasize those issues. But at the same time, from a health perspective, there are certain countries that are, for example, yellow fever endemic. In this instance will be the DRC when we talk about SADC. So in this instance, they will need a yellow fever certificate to show that they've been vaccinated for yellow fever for them to enter the Republic. So we re-emphasize all of those things through the embassies, but also through DERCO into those countries. Similarly, when it comes to agricultural biosecurity, as South Africa, we don't accept anybody bringing any kind of a fruit or an agricultural product from any of their jurisdiction and bring it into the Republic. So we re-emphasize that. Don't try to bring an apple here. Don't try to bring some orange here. Don't try to bring some whatever issue here. Because if you do, we're going to confiscate and we're going to make sure it gets destroyed. So I'm just saying, we do proactive work to make sure that when we now have to do the actual facilitation, we don't have problems. And I can confirm to you, even when we started doing this work to bring in the ministers, to bring in the senior officials, we have not had any incident wherein we had to have a major, takedown of some sort in terms of things that people have tried to bring into the country. So that proactive work has actually assisted us. By the way, when we handled BRICS just 2 years ago, we had one of the most difficult problems. And the reason why is because we did not at that time do a lot of proactive work. So we actually, in a way, learned through that process. And when we did the G20 last year, that was even a perfected one because it was actually global. Not even just SADC, but global. And we're able to do all the proactive work. So we learned through that you must make sure that proactive work is activated. So at the end, when they arrive, it becomes a bit easier. So one of the things that we do when they arrive, for example, I've been on the ground at Kinshasa, receiving some of the heads of state as they come through. So firstly, when they are busy trying to get down to the aircraft, we do health screening on them. We use a system that we have invested on, which is a very long-distance health assessment system. So we do that to the president, and they won't even see that we are doing that. We are checking if they have any escalated temperature so that we can be able to determine if they have any communicable disease or any kind of infectious disease. Once they are cleared, then they will go. But if we pick up a challenge with the head of state, we don't stop them. We actually call their medical team. We tell them what we've picked up, and they must go and make sure that they get them quarantined and they deal with that particular situation. If they find, when they do further work, if they find that, yes, indeed, they are having a particular infectious disease, they will not be able to come to the summit. But in this instance, all of them were cleared and they were able to come through. So we do that in terms of all the delegates. We also do immigration work. We then do agricultural biosecurity. We have our sniffer dogs. All their luggages is going to be, screened to make sure that there's nothing undesirable in their bags. And once they are cleared, then they're able to come through into the country. So that's the work that we do.
Yeah, that is a lot of preparation, but I think it's also important because then it gets to show how then South Africa is able to host a lot of these key important events because we've got the infrastructure and the skills in place to make sure that these events really run smoothly. And I'd just like to touch on what happened last week at OR Tambo when you launched the electronic travel authorization. And, how will that really benefit, the region itself as well as South Africa in terms of increasing tourists but also trade?
Yeah, you see, maybe let me start here by saying that when we came in as the Border Management Authority, we inherited a system that has been used by the Department of Home Affairs since 2010. And that was the system that was put together in preparation of the World Cup. It's called Enhanced Movement Control System. So that system was obviously getting a bit old, and it was becoming obviously very much obsolete. So there was another system that was put through called the biometric movement control system, with the intention of using the finger as a key biometric. So all those systems were becoming a bit obsolete, and that is why now we had to move into latest technology. And for us to be able to do that was to build an electronic travel authorization in the back end. That is the system that is with the Department of Home Affairs. It is actually a visa system where people then apply for visas for them to be able to come into the country. But when they arrive at the port, we then use an enhanced movement control system. We call it 2.0, which is version 2. So that is the system that now uses key biometric, which is the face. Facial recognition. That is why we invested in cameras, so that immediately somebody arrives at the port, you just look at the camera, the system pre-populates everything, biographic data from yourself, without any other thing. So an official will no longer have to sit in there and try to type anything on the system, but it pre-populates via your face. Immediately that has been populated, we then scan your passport. Then the system is going to compare, through AI in the back end, is going to compare your face as you are there, against the face when you were applying for ETA, and against the face on your passport. It does that triangulation and is able to then authorize you to enter the Republic. Now, the system for now, it is at airports, and we are going to roll it out to the rest of the other areas like land ports, seaports, and all of those places. The system is going to help us in a number of ways. One, we are going to move away from reliance on a passport in terms of looking at the passport, whether it is stamped, and looking at the date it was stamped. But we are now going to rely on the face. So inside the country, for everybody that entered the country, they are going to then be looked at through a camera, through their face, to check if they are in the country legally or not. That is going to help us with that. Secondly, there has been these schemes where people will take passports, go and get them stamped illegally, so that when people are found in the country, they are able to produce a passport with a date. And because it is physical, then people think the person is in the country legally, yet they're actually illegal in the country. But all of that will be gone when we start using the electronic traveler authorization. It will assist us mainly to manage migration, very fundamental. But more critically, it will also enable us to track individuals who would have entered the country under 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. When your days are about to expire, the system automatically sends you a message and say, by the way, you have 3 days, you need to start homing up to exit the country. Otherwise, you will be illegal and you are going to be sought after by the Immigration Inspectorate. So that is what the system is going to do. From a tourism perspective, a lot of people will be coming through that particular system because it takes 24 hours to apply for ETA and get an answer. So people like Chinese, which are the people we put in the pilot, Indians, Indonesians, Mexicans, we put those in the pilot because those are countries that generate a lot of tourism into our country, and they've been using it since the G20, and that is why the president just launched it now, so that we can roll it out to the rest of the other ports.
I mean, it's clear that BMA is technologically advanced, I think, at this particular stage. But then one would also ask a question that are you working also with other law enforcement agencies? Should there be any issues that may arise within the system itself? Our people may actually find loopholes also. And also, my second question to you is that how will you be working with other countries in terms of particularly the ETA system?
Yeah, maybe let me start by reflecting on the first one. We are working with the rest of the ecosystem. You will remember that in the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster, the JCPS, there is something that is called IJS. It's Integrated Justice System. So Integrated Justice System, it is a platform where all the systems in the security cluster are linking into to make sure that we are able to share data live, according to, in other words, every other thing that is happening in the criminal justice system. So in this instance, we are working together with the police, for instance, for the purposes of picking up people that would have committed crimes inside the country when they either attempt to exit the country. Similarly, we are working with Interpol. The Interpol South Africa Bureau in Pretoria, we work with them. We are linked with their system. We are able to pick up when people are in the red notice that are required by other countries because they committed crimes. We are able to pick that up and we are able to intercept those kind of individuals. But in instances, like with the example of Mr. Chuma, as an example, who killed his family in the UK and he was able to come through, some people thought that it was a failure of the system. No, it is because he left the UK, He went to Dubai, and then he ended up at OR Tambo. But by that particular time, nobody knew that his family has been killed. It was only when he arrived in South Africa that the British police picked up that his family has been killed, and they raised the alarm. And we were able to get him traced in seconds. You remember, it actually less than 24 hours, we got them arrested. So the point I'm trying to demonstrate is we are working with the rest of the ecosystem to deal with crime issues and make sure that we understand everybody that is in the country, and we deal with this issue of illegal migration. Now, in working with the rest of the other countries, remember, what used to be a very serious challenge has been people will have to go to embassies across the world, South African embassies, to go and apply for visa. You apply for a visa in an embassy in the UK, for example, and that particular application must come to Pretoria, it must be processed, and then after that you must then get results. Hence, people will have to wait for a month, for example, just to get a visa response. But now, we no longer have to do that. People don't have to go to embassies and make queues there and cause chaos. But what they need to do through their smartphone, they just go into eta.dha.gov.za. It's a web-based interface, and they're able through their phone to make the application. So that is the nature of the interface that we are to be having with the countries. Then we're going to be using these same countries to be able to populate the ETA when it gets rolled out to the rest of the countries, to make sure that the people on the ground definitely use it as they are intending to come into South Africa. Within 24 hours, they get their results. When they arrive at the port, seamless movement. And that is what we are meant to be doing in facilitating people and goods movement in and out of the Republic.
But then how are you conscientizing people also, around, all these advancements, all these tools as well? Is there some kind of like education, that is being made, to the South African public also, and then also to your bilaterals as well? Do they know about the system, So because you need to bring people back also to understand exactly how the system actually works.
Yeah, you're very much right on that. And by the way, we're discussing this same issue. And we were basically talking about the fact that although we do have communications and marketing in our ecosystem, we need an outreach, kind of a space within the Border Management Authority, and we don't have that as yet. So what we basically do, because obviously we are still building the organization. I mean, you know that we are still operating at 25% capacity. There are some issues of investment within the ecosystem itself. So on that basis, we also leverage on other structures, and they assist us to be able to communicate certain messages. I have indicated earlier about our relationship with the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, which is the platform we use to be able to reach out there in terms of other jurisdictions, in terms of communicating with the travelers through embassies and all of those kind of platforms. So we do that, we use other platforms and other structures that are existing in the government enterprise. In terms of the overall ETA, I would say publication or outreach work, the Department of Home Affairs itself, because they are the custodian of issuing visas and all of those issues. So they drive some of those particular outreach ultimately. But in terms of the actual travelers, when they come, there is also a lot of your branding and a lot of directive that we've given. If you are to arrive at OR Tambo, you will realize that there is an ETA counter, there is ETA areas and all of that well demarcated, and that is where everybody then gets processed as speedily as possible. So in our own conversations with our, the neighboring countries, bilaterals that we have, we keep on emphasizing these particular issues, and ultimately when this thing gets to the land ports, then you'll start seeing the difference in terms of us and our ability to make sure that we, do border management a bit better in the latest century.
And then the president spoke about this time around at one of his opening at the UKZN public lecture.
Yeah.
He spoke about deeper regional integration. And as we assume, the chairmanship, for the next 12 months, what plans or priorities is the BMA focusing on, or if you have any plans in place?
Yeah, you see, that is a very fundamental point. And if you were to listen to the president, even when he spoke, even yesterday at the gala dinner, one of the fundamentals is every other thing that is being dealt with, border management becomes very much central and very much key. Because you cannot talk about, for example, sub-regional economic integration and you can't talk about goods movement between countries. That becomes border management. So if you were to talk about infrastructure, development that we need to advance for the economies of the region to grow together so that we can deal with the push factors, especially for people moving out of jurisdictions because there's no economic opportunities. All of those issues, the issue of border management becomes very much central. And that is why we become very key as the BMA in this particular conversation. So what are the plans that we have in place? Number one, you will be aware that we are in the process of starting to redesign and redevelop our top 6 land commercial ports. Bait Bridge is going to be redesigned, completely opened up. Libombo is going to be done the same, the one that goes to Mozambique. We're going to be doing the same to Oshuk, the one that goes to Eswatini. We're going to do the same to Maseru Bridge and Fixberg going to Lesotho. We're going to do the same to Kofontaine going to Botswana. All these ports are going to be opened up. The intention is to make sure that we have, for example, the lanes that will be exclusively for the trucks, the lanes exclusively for the buses, the ones for the taxis, the ones for the small vehicles, and all of that. But for the trucks, the most important part, we are working to make sure that there is a non-stop border post, meaning the trucks, when they arrive at the port, they will no longer have to stop. They will have to just pass through. And that is why we are working together with our immediate neighboring countries to make sure that we activate non-stop border post. Zimbabwe is ready. They've already done their redevelopment. When we are done with ours, definitely we are going to implement all of that. All these are the plans to make sure that there is seamless movement of goods between countries in the region and ultimately in the continent so that we can achieve Africa, or what is called intra-Africa trade, and ultimately activate the African continental free trade area. So we are very much central to that. But as we do that with goods, we must do that with people. When people are able to move seamlessly without any issue, they're able to move legally, then it enables us to be able to improve our economies and ultimately improve employment opportunities and ultimately have better migration patterns within the region, and that becomes very much critical.
I think, Dr. Masiapato, this conversation has really given our viewers a sense that the BMA is central to SADC Vision 2050. And the fact that, without the prescripts governing the BMA, a lot of these ideas of regional integration and industrialization will not be realized. So, it's very important that we also understand that movement of people and goods, as you've said, is key to making this region thrive. So we thank you for your time with us. And now we'll be crossing over to an interview that we pre-recorded with our guest from UKZN, Mr. Sandile Mnguni.
I think it positions UKZN because the slogan says that Premier University of African Scholarship. It gives the university that credibility that it really wants, or it is concerned about African issues, but also regionally. It wants to ensure that it deals with the issues that the region is faced with in terms of the population it serves, the students it deals with. It wants to ensure that they have the necessary skills to deal with African challenges, especially those facing the SADC region. But also, more importantly, the presence of a statesman in a university is a significance because it provides that legitimacy that is needed, that the university is really interested in working closer with the government, but also in dealing with the challenges that the society at large is faced with. That cannot be done with the university working alone, working in silos, but also the government cannot do that without being involved with entities such as university. And obviously, UKZN was better placed for that.
Hi, my name is Renee Naidu. We are at UKZN, and I just saw the president. Oh my God, guys! I was so excited. And the president is here for a meeting that UKZN is hosting. I feel like having a meeting with all these foreign countries is a step forward because a lot of war-stricken countries are coming together to discuss Africa's potential. They should be talking about building better infrastructures for African countries, especially the rural areas, because I feel like a lot of African countries have potential. We just don't have the infrastructure to get there.
Okay, because the Africa that we want to see, an industrialized, developed Africa that we want to see, that cannot happen as a miracle. It needs a human capital. So in this regard, the youth is regarded as to be at the center of this future that we want, at the center of this developed and industrialized Africa that we want. So now it puts a challenge to the education sector that in terms of curriculum, things need to move in a direction that will ensure that the youth is equipped with the necessary skills that will allow the region and the continent in general to move towards the direction of development, but also of creating its own infrastructure without having to seek for assistance from the outside, sometimes which can be a bit expensive. So in a way, the youth will be central in creating this infrastructure that Africa needs, but also in servicing the infrastructure that will be built and other necessary components of this development that will involve. For instance, you find that when we look in sectors such as engineering, for instance, there are these components that always have to be outsourced elsewhere. Sometimes they become expensive, but not only expensive, it can be time consuming. Something as a component could take about 6 months to be delivered into the continent. So if you have the youth being properly trained with the proper curriculum that the education sector is capable of creating, you find that it will be easier for the youth to be the source of this development that we need, but also of servicing this development that has already been created in terms of the infrastructure. For instance, in the event of breakdowns with the machinery, it will be easier for the African youth of the future, which has been properly trained with the proper curriculum that has been created by the education sector. It will be easier for such components to be insourced. So in a way, the education sector should create a curriculum that is able to resonate with the African problems.
Hi, I am Seneko Kuduma. I'm a professor and the Dean of Teaching and Learning in the College of Health Sciences at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. So when we got this invitation, it was exciting, especially for me, being the Dean of Teaching and Learning, to see how best we can integrate what the President is thinking, but more importantly, what the Vision 2050 is all about into the curriculum, so that we make sure that we produce the graduates that are not only just fit for purpose today, but also into the future. So listening to the President helped me to realize that I need to go back into the college and talk to my colleagues and talk to the students and see how best we make this vision a real vision, not only for now, but for the future generations to come.
Okay, I think as things stand, it doesn't. I don't think it's enough. The collaboration that exists, UKZN and also with other South African universities and also other universities in the region, I don't think it has reached a level that we can regard as to be going forward. I think the best that can be done is also maybe on issues of curriculum development. Those that are seemingly doing well in certain fields or in certain disciplines that are seen as to be of necessity moving forward should be able to try and assist the institutions that seem to be struggling. But also, more importantly, I think it's the issue also of access to information. Some universities are better placed to certain information in terms of access to experts, for instance, but also in terms of access to database. I think institutions need to try and open up themselves to collaboration with other institutions. But also not only that, in terms of curriculum, there should be somehow some form of similarity, that it should be easier for a student who is moving from UKZN, for instance, to another university in Tanzania to be able to move easily. But also in terms of collaboration, when it comes to research, someone who is interested in research that is seemingly relevant to a particular or to another university within the SADC or within the African continent should find it easier to move or to be able to work with experts from that other university. And also this aspect of having key projects that exist amongst these universities. For instance, a university like ours, such as UKZN, should be able to have, already there are some of those projects, but I think there should be more of them that exist with other institutions, not only in terms of the success of these projects themselves becoming a success, but also in terms of human capital. Creating a situation where students from different institutions are able to interact with each other and share some of their insights in relation to particular research and solutions and the thinking that they have around various topics and various issues that are facing the African continent and the SADC region in general. Mostly with our university, UKZN, it ensures that it brings itself, it ensures that it is closer to the communities and the problems that they are faced with. But also in terms of our curriculum is in such a way that it is adapted to the African issues. The literature or the scholarship that is offered mostly is the scholarship that resonates with Africa, written mostly to deal of looking at the African problems, but also trying to come up with African solutions. But also there is room for students to bring their own frame of reference in relation to where they are coming from. Students are always encouraged every now and then when they are engaging in research to try and do research that is closer to the African issues, that is closer to the problems that Africa is faced with, and also in trying to come up with African solutions. But not only that, even in terms of the language, there are some developments in relation to try and ensure that the graduates that leave the university are able to communicate effectively with the local communities where they are coming from. But also, other than that, there has been a number of projects that try or seek to ensure that the university is able to link with other communities outside South Africa, in the African continent mostly, where it has gone as far as to even the recruitment of students doing research about their various communities within the African continent and also in the SADC region. So the thinking has always been that allows African intellectual thought to flourish without it being intercepted, whilst also ensuring that those traditions of being a university are kept in terms of research, for instance.
My name is Lucy Ngama. I'm the Deputy Vice Chancellor and Head of the College of Health Sciences. Today we were hosting the SADC region delegates. The president was here to give a public lecture.
And we've just come back from that interview with Sandile Mnguni from UKZN. And now we're joined in studio by the mayor of eThekwini, Mr. Cyril Kaba. Welcome to Goza TV.
Oh, thank you very much. Greetings to yourself and to the viewers at home. Thanks for the opportunity.
Mayor, if you can just tell us, what does hosting the SADC Summit mean for eThekwini as a city? What benefits do you think you'll derive from hosting this auspicious event?
Well, firstly, eThekwini is known for holding major events. And we are really becoming a destination a preferred destination for conferencing, sporting, and leisure, and so on. So, and that has translated itself into what called tourism. As you know, that the city has seen the tourism sector as one of the major economic sector that will have a serious competitive or comparative advantage. So hosting such an event, profiling the city, it means a lot to the city of Durban. People are viewing this thing at home, wherever they are. They're looking at this beautiful city that has been able to host a successful international event. They're saying, wow, one day I would want to visit this city. People who are here, though, as delegates, after they've been exposed, and they'll take away this wonderful and memorable experience back home, and then come back as visitors. And then whenever they'll be talking about this city. And the investors are also looking at us. I mean, last year alone, the city attracted in excess of 50 billion rand investment. You know, I'm saying it starts from small things like this that you see the city and succeeding and staging an event, pulling all stop to ensure that an event such as this becomes a success that it is. I'm excited.
Mayor, the city has a very important, corridor here. And perhaps maybe you'd like to share some of the achievements, from the port of entries that have taken place, perhaps maybe in the last few years, with our viewers here.
Well, look, let me thank firstly the Minister of Transport at the national level, who was responsible for the port. And the investment they made in the port has actually increased the operational efficiencies of the port. So that means a lot in terms of pushing volumes of the economy in and out of the country. And they move through this corridor. And we are busy and, revamping our N3, and you've seen it. It's been widened, and there's a lot of investment that has gone into that, recognizing the importance of this corridor. They're also investing in rail, because you can improve the road, you can improve the port if your rail it's not improved. You find it difficult to get cargo away from road to rail, because we need to push cargo from road to rail. So I'm excited with the investment that is actually happening in the freight rail, as it were. And they've opened up to even private operators to operate the rail as well. So this is exciting news. And we are developing a dry port, not very far away from the city, to ease out congestion in the city. There's a 10 billion rand investment that will be taking place in the Cato Ridge area. So that excites me. That as we do these things, growth happens, people see new opportunities, and they are now investing to say, how then do we ease out the traffic by investing in the thing, so that we facilitate the quicker turnaround time, as it were.
And just to add, we understand that the Presidential eThekwini Working Group has really facilitated for the city to implement a couple of reforms. If you can, share a bit with us how that process has really assisted the city to come to a point where it attracts that 50 billion rand investment you spoke about.
From 2017, the city had a 277 billion rand in investment in pipeline. So just major catalytics with the potential of creating in excess of 300,000 jobs. But we needed a push so that we convert these intentions, these pledges, and into real investment. That today you see Umhlanga developing to where it is now. If you go to Umhlanga, if you're Umhlanga 10 years ago and Umhlanga now, you'll see a huge difference. All of that is as a result of the intervention made by the president. Remember, what necessitated the presidential eThekwini working group is a meeting that the president had with business. And business said, we have these challenges. If these bottlenecks can be removed, we are ready to come to the party and invest. And I also met with one financial investor, I will mention the name, who said to me, just within 2 months of my election, he said, hey man, we are sitting with applications that are making a serious business case. But we are not certain about the direction that the city is taking, you know? And we met, we discussed, I then said, if you leave business behind, you know, and you will not get to where you want to be. Remember, it's not a function of government to create jobs. It's business create jobs. Ours is creating an enabling environment. And that the presidential eThekwini working group is assisting us in creating that environment to be conducive for investment to land.
Mayor, as much as, you spoke about investment and so forth, but then what are opportunities that exist, for young people, for women in particular as well, amongst all this investment that you've been having in the city?
Well, you see, we have been looking at that issue because as a mayor, I'm also a chairperson of the finance committee at work. We look at how work is allocated to different groups within the city. I found that there is a slow take-up on the side of women and young people. I think sometimes it's a function of finance, funding, because unless you get funding and you'll not be able to take ambitious projects, as it were. And my appeal is to the financiers to have confidence in businesses led by young people, businesses led by women. Then you'll see a difference.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for that. And I think you've encapsulated, what eThekwini is capable of. And we hope that viewers out there are really hoping to come to Durban. So we'd like to thank you for your time. And we're going to go back to the UKZN interview.
Delegates, the president was here to give a public lecture on the Vision 2050 of SADC. We're very excited about it as a university, and the reason why we are excited is that we really want to partner with government in delivering on this Vision 2050. And some of the issues that he highlighted, which stood out for me, is the special planning that was always there which was always meant for apartheid, like how the roads were planned to take minerals, to take all the commodities out of the country instead of us trading within the region. What also stood out for me as someone who's coming from health sciences is how we have not developed our own capabilities in terms of pharmaceuticals, in terms of health infrastructure, in terms of sharing all this technology around health, digital transformation in health. That really stood out for me, and I thought it's something that I'll take back, and we need to reflect on it and plan how we assist the government and the SADC region to move forward on this vision, because we learned from COVID that we are on our own, as he said. And out of that desperation, we were able to work together. I think we need to draw lessons from that, because we were able to work together, and we were able to finally develop our own scientists to do the work. We had a lot being done at that time, and that showed us that we can do it. It took a crisis, but like they say, out of a crisis, something positive emerges, and we must now not lose those lessons, but draw from those lessons and use them to drive the agenda and this Vision 2050 forward.
Yes, somehow it became, I think it was a very light moment, which became very interesting, that also looking at the attendance itself, it showed that the youth has serious interest in relation to the politics of the day, but also in the region in general, in Southern Africa. I think it does place somehow easiness in relation to explaining that because of the youth's involvement, because of the subscription the youth has in things like social media and their interest on technology, it becomes very easier to explain to them that when one speaks of the SADC region, you are generally speaking about a community in Southern Africa, in the region of Southern Africa, a community of countries that are cooperating with each other, not only cooperating for the sake of cooperating, but they have challenges that they are faced with. Some of those challenges are already known to the youth. For instance, on issues of migration, on issues of climate change, on issues of access to necessary infrastructure, basic infrastructure such as water and energy. So this cooperation, explaining to the youth, would be that this cooperation is trying to bridge the gap amongst these countries, because the challenges that they are faced with in Southern Africa, these problems are common. And it becomes easier to even make examples to them that, look, there are issues that are always trending on social media, for instance, on issues of migration, on issues of access to basic needs such as energy and water. We've seen a number of countries in the region being faced by issues of shortage of water, shortage of energy, for instance. So the main goal now with this community of Southern Africa is to ensure that these countries try and come with solutions that they are faced with, but also looking at the population makeup of most of the countries in Southern Africa, also looking at Africa in general, you find that the makeup is such that it is made up of the youth. And now that you find that the common challenge amongst these countries in Southern Africa is that there's issues of unemployment, especially the youth. So this cooperation, this community called the SADC, is trying to deal with those issues as well, on issues of unemployment, but also try and create an infrastructure that will ensure that everything is able to go smoothly. Every now and then we are faced by issues of network challenges. The phone maybe, or even a device connected to an internet is freezing. Now you find that through this cooperation, an infrastructure that will ensure that the communication or the usage of such technological devices seamless will become even much easier for these countries through them cooperating with each other.
Clearly today, it has been very clear for me that we need to do even more, because what we hear, Vision 2050, but we don't bring it to the ground. We don't bring it to the people in the community. We don't bring it into the classroom, which is why it excited me in particular to say, let me hear more about it and let me take what I'm hearing and make it easy for the next person to understand, not only in the curriculum, but going home and talking to my niece, explaining in a way that she understands that she has a responsibility to take this vision to the future, because we will be gone. Just like the president was saying, it's not our vision. It's a vision, it's our vision for them, but they are the ones that are going to take it forward. But if they don't know what it is, then we are not doing our job.
I think the best tool across all of these so-called necessary skills, I think there will never be a possibility, these skills, if students do not have proper communication skills. And the proper communication skills also make it easier for them to become proper researchers. Through research, students are able to generate knowledge that will be useful, but also knowledge that will be for the African continent, that will resonate with the African realities. And also on issues of digital literacy, students being able to engage with the technology, being able to use it responsibly. I think all of these necessary skills that we want them to have will become even more useful. And mostly, as I said, I think engineering is one of the most needed, but also we need people who will be able to build these government institutions that we have, these necessary institutions that are to become stronger and are able to have stronger leadership that is to implement proper policies that are needed, create laws that are necessary for the country, where laws should be created in such a way, laws and policies are created in such a way that they shouldn't be just reacting to the realities of the African continent, but they should be far ahead, where laws anticipate in relation to the upcoming problems and also the upcoming possibilities and opportunities. And obviously, agriculture will also be a necessary aspect in relation to these skills that will be needed for the African continent. There is a lot of potential when we look at the SADC region in terms of agriculture, but climate change has become an issue. So through research, universities and also the skills that are going to be needed should be able to adapt with the African realities, the realities of the SADC region when it comes to climate change. How do we adapt these infrastructures, these technologies that we have so that they are better placed to deal with these problems in the SADC region? Obviously, we also have issues such as access to clean potable water. Skills need to be built around that aspect where there is proper management of this infrastructure, of these resources that are seemingly scarce. Such skills will become even more important as the region is battling with issues of climate change, for instance, but also trying to respond to these realities of climate change. You then need individuals who will come with innovative skills in relation to the generation of energy. And then clean green energy then becomes the most viable mechanism. And I think I did emphasize this aspect in relation to having skills where people are to manage the land effectively and things such as water, which we need on a daily basis. When we look at the region in Southern Africa, it's one of the regions that some of the countries, especially South Africa, it experiences serious shortages in relation to access to clean potable water. And then such skills will be needed in terms of the youth being trained properly so that they are able to manage these resources properly.
From UKZN, and he was really reflecting on the public lecture that took place, Eugene. We're also seeing through the feed that there are arrivals of heads of state. Earlier on, we saw our President Cyril Ramaphosa also arriving at the Chief Albert Luthuli International Convention Center. So, Eugene, just reflecting on our conversation with the mayor, in terms of how really hosting these events bring a lot of benefits for eThekwini and also opening up, the expansion program of the corridors.
No, definitely, Tseho. I mean, the mayor actually highlighted on the importance, of those corridors, for them, and that there's been quite a lot of investment that has been injected, towards the city. Not only do they just, play a diplomatic host, to the SADC, but remember that, this province in particular and the city has hosted quite a lot of prestigious events, in the last couple of years. So it is the gateway to Africa, as the mayor actually, I think, put it as well. So I think, it's very, very important, that, it's obviously SADC is actually taking place here, but then also it actually helps, to amplify the tourism, aspect, of it at the end of the day. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think also, we also understand that South Africa is a key destination for hosting a lot of international events. And as the commissioner of the BMA outlined to us, it's particularly because of our state of readiness in terms of infrastructure and technology that South Africa has put in place to allow for that, a fast facilitation of movement of people and goods, ensuring that linking to our own domestic policy of Operation Vulindlela. I mean, if we look at this eThekwini working group that the mayor spoke to, it's an outcome of what is called municipal reforms. So the president has seen it fit, that within certain metropolitan areas, there has to be reforms that really facilitate investment. So we've got the Johannesburg working group. We've got a working group also in the city of Gqeberha. And this is just some of what Operation Vulindlela is unlocking. But also this freight logistics committee, it's really, really engineering what the mayor spoke about, particularly around the opening up of private players in the rail industry. We've seen Minister Barbara Creasy making those announcements earlier this year. So it's really coming into fruition what domestically we've put in place and the priorities of the 7th administration.
No, definitely, Tsecho. I mean, you can see that, the province is ready, for economic growth, and they've actually advanced, I think, in that level, So the fact that, he's also not leaving, any young people or women behind, they also are saying that we are addressing the issues of poverty, the issues of unemployment, through various programs that they actually have in place. But then one also must note that, going back to the Border Management Authority, that it's very impressive in terms of, their digital connectivity, that they're able to actually introduce, systems that when you look at, previous years, 10 years down the line, South Africa was not even there, in terms of, port of entries. So it's quite impressive that, you have a government entity that is saying that in terms of digitization, we are definitely there. We're on par, with all our Western countries as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, looking at the fact that we as a country, we're also very much a benchmark, for the region. We tend to lead on some of the harmonization policies, and countries would then say, okay, whatever it is that one of our member states has done, let us see if we can't replicate that. And I'm going to make an assumption that also through the BMA, there will be some lessons learned from that. And I'm also seeing that at these arrivals, a lot of the dignitaries are also being received by the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Minister Lamola, and he chairs the Council of Ministers,
yes, correct.
Eugene,
Yes,
and this week he also spoke a lot about other issues related to what the priorities of the summit are.
No, definitely. I mean, the minister has been quite busy. I mean, actually, when one look at the calendar, over the past month, there's been quite a lot of activities, different programs as well. I mean, you've also mentioned that the Council of Ministers. There's been a public lecture. Also, the minister also yesterday was part of the wreath laying, of the OR Tambo. So he's been a very busy minister. But I think what we need to see also, I think, close, the SADC, then we're going to be seeing quite a lot of, work, being implemented by our minister, Lamola. Yeah.
And yesterday, Eugene spoke to Mr. David Munyai, who is an analyst from the University of Johannesburg. Let's take a look at that interview.
Welcome to our special broadcast of government TV called Goza TV. Maybe let's go back to 2 days ago. The President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, at UKZN, pronounced on a deeper regional integration. Perhaps maybe let's start there. How does it look like? I mean, from where we were to South Africa obviously taking the current chairmanship of SADC?
I think our understanding of deeper regional integration, we have to go back to 1980 when this body was established. It was established primarily to deal with the apartheid South Africa, that the entire region with uneven economic growth, infrastructure residing more in South Africa, and therefore the region with apartheid, how do you liberate South Africa as well as lessen the region dependent on apartheid South Africa? Post-1994, it changed from your SADC with double C to a SADC that we know today. And therefore, I think economic development was central. However, the entire region itself has transformed quite enormously. It has transformed in terms of population. It was a smaller population than 46 years ago. Now we are almost 400 million, a population size as big as the United States population. Home to some of the most precious critical minerals. And therefore, when you talk about a deeper integrated region, it means moving away from the model we had in the past, where wealth, prosperity, infrastructure is centered around one country. About 70 to 80% of what is consumed in the region comes from South Africa, just to give you a picture. I think we need to ensure that we grow the economy in South Africa far beyond 6% on an annual basis. But that growth needs to be a shared growth. The entire region needs to also grow. So critical areas of growth, first and foremost, should and must be agriculture. We have to deal with the issues of food insecurity in the region, and we need sufficient energy, sufficient bulk water for us to realize industrialization, to absorb huge number, above 60% of our youth are unemployed, vulnerable women. And therefore, I think for us to absorb these challenges, we need to coordinate. Yes, there has been tension of the movement of unregulated as well as undocumented foreign nationals in South Africa, but we need to think far beyond. We still need our people to move. That's where the contradiction comes. But the question is that moving where? It shouldn't just be a movement in one area. So dealing with that model where South Africa is the only center, we need to broaden so that this growth infrastructure, cross-border payment system, small businesses, the corridors, our ports, our roads, the green economy is realized to deal with this in a much more deeper way. That's what the president meant, that the region has to think as a community to confront global challenges in a world in which your United Nations and other bodies are fragmenting, as you are aware, with geopolitics. So there's so much issues that are on the table, and the task for the chair is to ensure for the next 12 years these resolutions are not just remaining on paper, they are implementable. You then tick, and I would even suggest that they need a SADC compact agreement and ensure that they tick these boxes before South Africa hands the chairship to the next SADC chair.
One would say that, I mean, to grow this economy, to have a thriving African continent or the southern part of the region, they would say that the region is somehow, some states, there's political instability. Now, you cannot attain, that economic activity or growth, if there's no, issues of peace, it's not coordinated properly. How do we overcome those challenges? I know that, I mean, in Madagascar, there's the Troika has sent a delegation, in the form of former President Joyce Banda, to mediate in that particular country. But then how does the Troika in particular and SADC nation actually come together and ensure that let's have a territory, where there's peaceful movement before we even get to that integration or thriving economy?
I think this is one of the major challenges. And I think the heads of states must, first and foremost, take stock of what has been happening. What is it that has been happening? We all agree to go to the DRC, and deal with the crisis in the Eastern DRC. We lost troops, 14 troops that we lost. And thinking about it now, the core question must be asked, when does the region intervene? How do you intervene? What are the prerequisites and conditions to intervene? And when we say intervene, what do we mean? Do we mean troops, boots on the ground? Do we mean envoys, as you have mentioned, in a preventative, using diplomacy to prevent, as the situation in Zambia now with the elections, and really drums of instability coming from the ground in a chaotic way, some areas of these elections in Zambia. These are core issues. But far beyond that, I think we also need to ensure that we deal with issues of financing. Who will finance these troops? The logistics that are required in the region to deal with these conflict areas. In Mozambique, what exactly should be done in Mozambique? How will SADC work with the AU as well as the United Nations to ensure that it garner more resources from these important bodies? But given the geopolitics of the day, I would say we are on our own. Therefore, our head of states and ourselves need to step up, ensure that we have sufficient resources, we have able body to move in where crises emerge and deal with it decisively in a coordinated way, so that we avoid a situation of the DRC where we committed troops, we lost troops, and we discuss at the region, but then there's a chaotic exit, not just chaotic. You have a country that is discussing and bringing in Americans, bringing in other players into the theater in a way that undermines the region. So does Mozambique. Mozambique is bringing in Rwanda, it's well and good of bringing other players, but they have to be coordinated with the region and ensure that it is done in an orderly way without unnecessary loss of lives, as was the case in the Eastern Congo.
Professor, we have 16 head of states. Some are here, some are obviously landing tomorrow. We have government officials, we have various participants also as part of the summit. In your view, how and what are you expecting in terms of the agenda itself? What should be the key priorities that should be discussed at this 2026 summit?
It's a huge challenge for the chair. I think it has been defined, regional integration, deeper regional integration, as the president has put it, through infrastructure, handling issues and tensions around immigration issues, and to do industrialization. I think those are key issues. Hotspots, how to neutralize hotspots in the region, as well as dealing with new threats, cybersecurity. We have to deal with it. We have to deal with issues of skills as we talk and move into the fourth industrial revolution. The issue of digital cross-border payment system. How do our people move? As much as we have tension around undocumented foreign nationals, our people should and must move, but they have to move in an orderly fashion and avoid a situation where people only move into one area. People need to move across these 16 countries, as well as goods. We are talking about corridors. What kind of corridors? Do we have sufficient energy for industrialization? Do we have sufficient bulk water? I think these are questions that our leaders need to ask, as well as skills and people settling in these corridors in a much more productive way than thinking about shipping raw materials outside the country to United States, Europe, or China. I think we need to just think comprehensively, how do we alleviate poverty in our region? So head of states have much and more critical things to do. And 12 months is not enough to achieve. However, South Africa should and must ensure that the resolution are implementable. They can tick boxes before handing over the chairship to the next chair of SADC next year.
The forefathers envisioned a prosperous Africa, first thing. And now, Vision 2050. What is your take, and is it attainable? Can we realize it? Are we going to be seeing a thriving African continent and SADC nations working together, coordinating together, and integrating peacefully in that 2050 time?
In 1963, the framers of our then OAU had a dream of a big bang integration. I subscribe to that in Kwame Nkrumah's wish. However, I think what was achieved in 1963 was that we have to do it in a gradual fashion. That's why we have these 5 regions, as well as the 6th region, which is the African diaspora. We have made a lot of achievements, but our progress is not linear. It's a zigzag, where we make more progress and then we have reversal of some of this. I think you can see there's relative stability in the region, yet there's been coups in West Africa, in our own region, Madagascar. I think we have a coup. So we have to think outside the box. How then do we deal with new issues? We have your cybersecurity. We are threatened by other forces coming from outside our continent. How then do we survive as a continent? But when everything is said and done, we have no choice other than to unite as Africans, confront these challenges head on, inefficiently with limited resources. We have no choice other than achieve the goals that we have put in front of us.
Welcome back to a special broadcast of the 46th SADC Summit. We are coming live from the Inkosi Chief Albert Lutulu ICC Convention Center in South Africa. Just to recap, Tseho, we've just looked at the interview that I've just wrapped with Professor Munyai from the UJ. And pretty much, I mean, we spoke about, Vision 2050. And in terms of, it is a blueprint of the SADC, and it's obviously a long-term strategic document in terms of what we want to see this Africa to look like, what do we want to see this SADC nations to look like. So that interview was actually pretty much a refinement of, what will also be discussed, during the SADC day-to-day.
Definitely, Eugene, and I think it's important to also have, those analytical voices that are really bringing us into context around what is it that SADC would mean, even from an academic point of view. We know that the value chain of, public thought is centered really around academia, business, and government leaders. And I think we've also seen through the feed that we're getting in terms of arrivals, we've seen the arrival of King Mswati. Yes. We've also seen the arrival from Lesotho as well. So now we're going to be cutting to our SADC promo. We'll be back with you shortly.
Durban is ready. KwaZulu-Natal is ready. Southern Africa is coming together. This August, South Africa proudly hosts the 46th SADC Summit in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, bringing together leaders united by a shared vision of regional cooperation, industrialization, economic integration, and sustainable development. Set in the heart of KwaZulu-Natal, a province renowned for its rich cultural heritage, natural beauty, world-class hospitality, and strategic position as a gateway to Southern Africa and the Indian Ocean. Durban provides a fitting stage for this important gathering of our region. The SADC Summit reflects our collective commitment to building a stronger and more integrated Southern Africa, one where our economies grow together and our people share in the opportunities that growth creates. Because when Southern Africa works together, trade expands, investment grows, businesses thrive, jobs are created, and more families have the opportunity to build a better future. Together, we are building a region that is more connected, more competitive, more resilient, and more prosperous. The 46th SADC Summit. One region, one people, one vision, shared prosperity.
And now we're back in studio and we have a guest with us, our Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Willie Okamp. Welcome to Goza TV.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be with you.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Minister, we'd like to just touch on one of the priorities, particularly the one around food security, within the region. And what is it that your department, is intending to contribute to that particular priority that is set up?
Thank you very much. Food security is so important for obviously every nation on earth, but especially for us here in the southern tip of Africa, in the SADC region. We've got a population that are very poor, and we need to make sure that we provide food to them, but not only the availability of food, also the affordability thereof. It doesn't help you that the racks in shops are full of food, but it's not affordable. So from the Department of Agricultural side, we are busy obviously producing food with our farmers. We are helping upcoming farmers, subsistence farmers, but our job is to assist a subsistence farmer to not only provide for him and his family, but also to provide more. We must help them to grow so that they can provide a village and an area or a district rather than only themselves. So that is what we are doing. I think if it comes to SADC, the collaboration that we must have within SADC to empower those small-scale farmers to, as I say, be able to become semi-commercial and later on commercial. It will really help a lot with regards to food security, but also food affordability.
And we saw earlier this year, there was the SADC Agriculture Ministers meeting, and one of the things that was discussed there was really around a common protocol for managing foot and mouth disease. So, if you can really just unpack that for us and how that will work, because we've seen how the foot and mouth disease tends to affect particularly the export of beef.
Yeah. We are busy to deal with the largest foot and mouth disease outbreak ever experienced in this country. And we have, from South Africa's side, made a decision that we will vaccinate the whole herd in South Africa. So we are walking in the same footsteps as Brazil did many years ago. And we saw how Brazil was very successful in getting export markets opened up again to be foot and mouth disease free, but with vaccinations. So if you look at SADC countries, we all face the similar challenges. We all got wildlife, buffalo that's carriers of this disease. Every country has got them. So we need to work together. We have, from South Africa's side, already provided 50,000 doses or vaccines to Namibia, Eswatini, as well as Lesotho, so that they can be prepared. Should there be outbreaks, they can immediately counter them. Our imports of vaccines have grown drastically. Up to the end of June, the beginning of July, we imported 13.5 million vaccines into South Africa for the last year and a half. Since the 1st of July, in other words, in the last month and a half, and going up till the end of August, we would, for this 2-month period, bring in roughly 10 to 12 million vaccines. So you can see that the tempo and the rate in which we are bringing in those vaccines have increased drastically. It also helped that we totally opened this up for the private sector to assist and for farmers to vaccinate their own cattle themselves. It helps a lot with the speed up process. What we've also done is we've said that the distribution of the vaccines must become quicker. Every single vaccine that landed in South Africa, whether it's from Argentina or from Turkey, first had to go through Onderstepoort Biological Products. There's no need for that. Onderstepoort Biological Products does not even manufacture this vaccine. So they were just purely a logistics hub. And that movement from the airport to Onderstepoort and then from there to the country, it really it created a bottleneck, it created time, and there's no need for OBP to distribute vaccines that importers can distribute them directly. So we've increased the rate in which vaccines are imported. We've increased the rate in which it's distributed, and by farmers vaccinating themselves, we've increased that as well. We will be willing to discuss this matter with any SADC country. We are going to face the same problem. We are facing the same problem, and we need to collaborate on that.
Minister, one of the key priorities for SADC is climate change. How is the department responding to issues of climate change in the SADC regions, but also particularly for South African farmers?
In my former portfolio as the Minister for Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, I dealt quite a lot with that. So coming to agriculture and having worked with that from an environmental side really makes things easier for me. Climate change is a reality. I think everybody should just first understand that we can see how seasons move on. And that would have an immense impact on our planting season, our harvest abilities, the yield that we get. You can just imagine if you normally plant on a certain date, but now due to climate change, you've got to move on with that date because the climate is not ready for you to be able to plant it. There might be huge difficulties when it comes to rain and the temperatures that you need for your seeds to grow. So it's really something that farmers are experiencing on a daily basis. As SADC, we are going to experience the same things. It's not only South Africa that's facing an El Nino. It's the whole of the southern points of Africa. It's Namibia, Botswana, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Zambia. It's all of us that will face that. And we need to help each other. We have developed things like drought-adaptable seeds, so that you plant the right seed that will be more resistant to the effects of climate change or to drought. We need to help each other with technology, with knowledge, and we need to take hands because we are in this together.
Thank you very much. I think you've really laid the foundation of, how we will contribute as South Africa to the goal of food security as well as agricultural exports that will be moving through the region. We thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of my counterparts in SADC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the highlands of Lesotho, a bridge now stands as a powerful symbol of regional cooperation between the Republic of South Africa and the Kingdom of Lesotho. The Senqu Bridge, built as part of Phase 2 of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project, ensures continued access and connectivity as the Pudihadi Reservoir is developed. At 825 meters long and about 90 meters high, the bridge is Lesotho's first extradosed bridge, engineered to meet the demands of one of Southern Africa's toughest terrains. Delivered under a treaty signed in 1986, the Lesotho Highlands Water Project is a bi-national partnership that supports water security for South Africa, as well as development and hydropower generation for Lesotho. More than infrastructure, the Senqu Bridge reflects what regional cooperation can achieve: shared benefits, shared responsibility, and a shared future.
We've just wrapped up our conversation with the Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Willie Okam, and the visuals you've just seen are from Lesotho, and they are part of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project, which is a joint project between South Africa and Lesotho. This is part of what we mean when we talk about SADC industrialization, as well as, SADC infrastructure development, Eugene. What we would have seen there is the Senqu Bridge, as well as the tunnel going into what is called the Pudihadi Dam. And, all that infrastructure is going to facilitate for water to move from Lesotho to South Africa. So this is part of what we mean when we talk about, towards a common future as a region.
No, that's quite interesting, actually, Tsecho, that, it's one of the key projects also of SADC, but then also, we've seen also with other countries also, like when it comes to electricity, the grid as well that connects, your Botswana, your Zambia also. So I think we'll love to actually see more of that, because at the end of the day, that actually takes us to that vision that everybody's talking about, that is Vision 2050. But then also, just looking at the screen as well, you can see that the President Cyril Ramaphosa, he's already welcoming some of the heads of state. We've seen that the minister from Lesotho also just arrived also. We've also seen that the Madagascar, representative is there as well. There's quite a couple of them. You can see that the atmosphere is obviously electrifying and quite exciting.
Definitely. I also saw the president of Namibia. She's also arrived, as well as the president of Botswana, Advocate Duma Boko, has also arrived, and President Cyril Ramaphosa receiving those dignitaries who will now be deliberating, on those key priorities of this particular 46th session of SADC, and hosting it in Durban. As we heard from the mayor earlier, it's quite a critical moment that will facilitate for SADC, investment within the eThekwini region, but at large within the KwaZulu-Natal province. And now we're going to go back to our documentary on SADC.
Congo. Then you'll be stabilizing the continent.
When it comes to peacekeeping, there is a role to play for SADC, and we have played a pivotal role in the UN peacekeeping forces across the world. In fact, the biggest troop deployment in those UN peacekeeping missions are from the Global South, from Africa.
Because we recognize that with peace comes development. With peace comes stability. We also want, as South Africa, to lay a solid and sustainable foundation for democracy and freedom. Because African people, after all the colonial struggles, we deserve freedom, we deserve development, we deserve democracy. I think we stand out as a region on democratic practice. Well, maybe a few failures here and there, but essentially we're one of the most actively democratic and multi-party regions of the African continent. We have relatively high levels of freedom of expression, the media. Again, we have hiccups here and there, but largely I think we've succeeded in creating a coherent community of cooperation.
Peace lays the groundwork for stability and growth. But South Africa and SADC's goals extend beyond peace alone. They include building a more inclusive community.
One of the principles in SADC is inclusivity and gender equality.
But once we agreed that we needed to improve the representation of women, you've seen increasing levels of women representatives in our parliaments of the SADC region.
SADC has always been progressive when it comes to women's rights. We have some of the highest number of women in parliament. We have to salute the women's representation in other smaller countries like Namibia, we have a female president. Like in Tanzania, we have a female president. I think it's necessary, whether it comes to policy, whether it comes to women in politics, and I support it.
My name is Princess Mojapelo. I am a SADC youth parliamentarian. So the youth parliament began in 2013, actually. And the platform supports us as young women to be unapologetic about our presence in the parliament, unapologetic about our presence as leaders. And I think my presence being here shows that our participation as women leaders, it is not optional, it is essential.
South Africa is today up at 60, 61, 62 million people. And in the bigger scheme of things at a global level, that number is very small. But if you look at the SADC region, it is sitting at 465 million people. This is a substantial figure.
Now you have 16 countries, not provinces, countries. These 16 countries are at different level of development. They have different challenges, different level of resources. So the complexity of negotiating a common understanding in such a very big number of countries is very challenging.
And now the important thing, of course, is to foster more and more economic integration, because it is through the movement of people in a seamless way that we will be able to enhance the growth of our region.
Trade knows no borders. In 2008, the SADC Free Trade Area was launched to link Southern African countries, making trade easier, faster, and fairer for everyone.
Now an agreement has been signed between SADC and the East Africa ECOWAS that will now begin the implementation of the Africa Free Trade Area, even in the SADC region.
South Africa produces a lot of stuff. The markets are very, very far. But in Africa, the markets are closer. Your transport costs are lower. So it's very important, therefore, to be part of the group that will make you grow.
We have built business alliances, and our businesses have helped entrepreneurs to grow in the SADC region. I still hold the view that much more should be done. I think inadequate industrial capacity in SADC countries is a problem, and we need them to have their own abilities to produce.
The absence of good, durable infrastructure holds us back, because we need those roads, those highways. If we can do that, it will open up the arteries of economic growth.
I always like to say we must deal with the African paradox, which is a South African paradox, a SADC paradox, a continental paradox. Because we have a rich SADC and poor population in SADC. Rich in almost all mineral resources, whether you talk uranium, whether you talk rare minerals, whether you talk gold, whether you talk manganese, platinum, you name it, you find it in SADC.
For us to grow economically, we need to see the whole region, SADC, as a market.
Eugene, now we can see there through our feed, it's what is popularly known as the family photo.
Maybe Tsecho, maybe explain to our viewers and also our listeners, like the significance of that family photo. I mean, when you look at it, you can see the familiar faces, from the continent, from the southern nation states. I mean, from your right-hand side, I mean, there's a president of Zimbabwe. I can see also His Excellency King Mswati is also there. But I think, just for our viewers, just take them through the significance, basically, of having this portrait.
So this portrait is important because, it is the one picture that says that the leaders of the region, all 16 member states, were gathered in Durban at the 46th Ordinary Summit of SADC, and it conveys that particular unity within the region. So this is a symbol, a visual symbol of that unity. We can also see there the president of Zimbabwe, Mr. Emerson Mnangagwa, and also president of Namibia there as well, president of Botswana. And, this family photo will go down in generations to say that, at the 46th Ordinary Summit of SADC leaders, these were the people that were there who were making decisions to advance the development of our region.
And Amitero, you've touched on the history part of it, because remember, part of this
unity for, African states to work together. We would remember that, we had frontline frontline states, and there's this iconic photography of, the president of Tanzania at the time, the late Julius Nyerere. You had, the president also, Ian Khama, also of Botswana, who was also in the particular portrait. And then you had some of those, Kenneth Kaunda also was also part of that picture as well. So today, it's very interesting that, we align history with the past and with the current,
yes,
basically.
Most definitely. And also in that picture, we are not seeing the president of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu, and I think it's because of, the kind of challenges that that country is dealing with. So you therefore see, two of our females representing their countries there in that picture as well. And there's our President Cyril Ramaphosa leading his counterparts to now walk off that podium where that family photo was being taken, and you can see the background of that family photo. It's an iconic landscape of Durban itself, where the summit is taking place.
Yeah, and we hope that this picture definitely is taking us to that Vision 2050, which is the blueprint, obviously, of the strategic regional integration. As you can see, delegates are moving now into the main plenary hall with the president, and some of them obviously are having their already sideline engagement. So we are hoping that what comes out from the auditorium, it's going to be of substance. It's going to be those key priorities that we've been talking about. That's our guests also have been talking about in terms of trade. In terms of the migration also, between countries and so forth.
Yes, most definitely, Eugene. And now we will be going to an insert, and we can also see visuals inside the plenary as we move into our insert.
The statue of President General Reginald Oliver Tambo of the African National Congress, who led the ANC during their years in exile and made sure that he mobilized the region, which was commonly known as the frontline states, to make sure that they support South Africa to live in their fight for freedom and liberation. In the quest for the liberation of South Africa, the frontline states worked together to make sure that other countries within the region, Namibia, also get their freedom, they got their freedom and liberation before South Africa. Made sure that Angola, who had their freedom, and also Mozambique, who had their freedom long time ago, were also supported to deal away with the stabilizing forces that were meant to destabilize Southern Africa. In this, we honor the fallen heroes of the Matola massacre, of the Maseru massacre, of the Battle of Kwito-Valley, and the many contributions that were made by other countries to the freedom and liberation of South Africa, but also for the region of SADC. The peace and stability we enjoy today as a region is because the men and women we are going to honor today sacrificed their lives for SADC to be free and to enjoy total liberty. As we quest for the economic development and continued solidarity of SADC, this symbolism of wreath laying reminds us of our unity and unity of purpose.
Welcome back, and if you just join us, we are at the SADC Summit, which is the 46th SADC Summit. We're coming live from the Inkosi Chief Albert Luthuli ICC Center in KZN in South Africa. So what we've just watched now, yesterday, President Cyril Ramaphosa led a delegation of some of the head of states, to do a wreath laying at the OR Tambo statue, in South Beach in KwaZulu-Natal. And you'd remember that this is very important symbolically because, OR Tambo, he is, I think, as some would say, the founding father, of democratic South Africa, that without him, this liberation that we currently are enjoying, this constitution that we currently have, we would not have been here.
Definitely, Eugene. I think that was an iconic moment, of that wreath laying, because it's also understanding that he also symbolizes the unity within the SADC region. OR Tambo set up offices in Lusaka, in Zambia, Tanzania. There was also, an office in Morogoro, particularly in Tanzania, and the Somafco College. And I think a lot of our history as South Africans is tied to the region of SADC. So looking at that wreath laying, it was also a reminder, for young people and, for those that are coming to the summit that, our ties are deeply connected as countries within the region. And we can now see, through our feed that the plenary is about to begin, and there's a playing of the anthem, it seems now. Eugene, we see all those dignitaries, those heads of state have also walked into this plenary hall.
No, that indeed they are there. And I mean, yesterday, one of our guests mentioned the SADC anthem. And, it would be very interesting to see if actually they'll be playing that anthem. Obviously, the South African anthem will follow in terms of protocol. But we're seeing that, a lot of them, they are there, they've gathered. We can see some of the heads of government, in that hall. And I think primarily, they are there, they want to understand, the agenda that will be set. They want to look at the progress that is currently underway. There's quite a lot of projects that SADC has put in place. I've mentioned also earlier that in Madagascar, they have a SADC liaison office that will be there to monitor and to understand exactly, the issues that may arise in that particular part of the country. And one of the things, also resolution that came out also from that troika, was the establishment also of a regional force office in Botswana, which will be there to assist, issues of humanitarian aid, basically, and also any natural disasters that may arise in the region. So one can actually say comfortably that, SADC is actually zooming in all key areas that, they want to make the issue of migration easier, for all the countries.
Definitely, Eugene. And as we see the visuals of the plenary hall, we do understand that, this hall is full because this is going to be the opening ceremony, of the 46th Ordinary Summit of SADC. But also this is where South Africa will now formally, take its chairpersonship of SADC for a period of about 12 months. We do know that, Madagascar was supposed to be steering this chairpersonship, but due to those stability challenges, South Africa had to come in and help to steer the ship till now and then take over. So this is a transition period for South Africa's interim chairpersonship of SADC, and now we are moving into full chairpersonship of SADC. So we're looking forward to what President Cyril Ramaphosa will say in the opening, how he will set the agenda, leading up to the 47th Ordinary Summit, which is expected to happen in Zambia when South Africa next year hands over to Zambia.
No, I think all eyes will definitely be on South Africa, for the next 12 months, to see exactly that are we implementing what we are saying? Because it's all in well that, there's this high-level conversations, dialogue that are actually taking place, but then are member states implementing those key priorities? Are they making it simpler and easier, for people to move from countries to country? Are they making it easier for businesses, to grasp those opportunities? More than anything, are they making it easier for to grow, the economy, to provide, jobs and opportunities, for businesses, for young people, for women also. So that is more likely, that a lot of, people will be looking at South Africa to steer that ship, to take us to, hopefully to aligned to that Vision 2050.
Yeah, and I know top of the agenda as well is issues of health. We've seen most recently President Cyril Ramaphosa traveled to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, to show commitment to a fund that will assist with management of the Ebola breakout that is happening there. I mean, we understand that these type of breakouts do need to be contained so that the entire region is then safe. So our commitment as South Africa, to ensuring health within the region is very, very critical and key, but also managing certain communicable diseases so that we do keep this youthful population that is being talked about, to say that 60% of the African population is young people.
No, absolutely. And the very same young people are looking for opportunities. They are saying that as much you can meet, but we want to know exactly how I do have raw materials, but then how do I process them from place to the other? How do I get opportunity to actually export, those raw materials? So that's where you'd find that, countries have to actually work together to coordinate that transfer, of goods from one place to the other.
Yeah. And there, Eugene, there we go. We see President Cyril Ramaphosa leading those heads of state as they are walking into the hall. I'm sure we'll shortly see them take their seats in front of all the delegates. Behind him is the president, King Mswati.
Yes, yeah,
Behind him is King Mswati. We're also seeing there the president of Zimbabwe, Emerson Mnangagwa. So those leaders will now be taking their seats so that we can get to those opening remarks of the summit itself.
No, yeah, I mean, we can also see, we do know that King Mswati is also the incoming chair in terms of the organ troika. So I think yesterday also the troika, they appreciated that his availability, that he's going to be there also. So it's going to be very interesting round for the next 12 months.
Yes, most definitely, Eugene. Peace and security are very key, critical to our region, and it is important, that all the leaders keep that at top of the agenda. And as our first guest said to us, even though that has been top of the agenda, it is not now necessarily the primary issue. The primary issue now is to say, how do we industrialize? How do we create jobs as a region? How do we trade amongst ourselves? And I think this Africa Free Trade Agreement has really opened up conversations to say that, as we sit in SADC, what can we learn from ECOWAS? What can we learn from the East Africa community? Because there are these regional communities across the continent. It's not only SADC. And how can we trade with one another?
No, I think we are going back to the main plenary as the proceedings are about to start, and we'll be back shortly.
So now we're going to be crossing into the plenary, and let's listen to the anthems.
Oh,